The acting Commodore responds to criticism over his new appointment.
Chairman of the Shantytown Action Task Force, Dorian gives an update on the committee's work.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Voining Tude. Topping news tonight, less than a week after the Prime Minister publicly instructed the Attorney General to petition a court-ordered Shantytown injunction, Chairman of the Shantytown Action Task Force, Dorian says they are ready to hit the ground running whenever that happens. Jasmine Brown reports.
Folk says while the task force work has been put on ice for several months, he says they're ready to go once that court injunction is lifted.
We are ready to go. Whenever that injunction is lifted, we are ready to move.
Last year, the government announced that it would demolish shanty towns throughout the Bahamas. At the forefront was the Shantytown Action Task Force. However, in August 2018, Supreme Court Justice Cheryl Grant Thompson handed down an injunction blocking the demolition of shantytown structures.
We were well on the way to dealing with all of the shanty towns in New Providence, some 11 from last summer. And this summer, July 31st, a few months ago, we were supposed to deal with all the shanty towns in Abaco. But as you know, the injunction stopped our work.
Folk says when that injunction is lifted, the task force will be back in action, and their first order of business will be getting the committee reconstituted.
We will reactivate the existing committee. I do not want to foreshadow what advice I will get from the Attorney General's office in terms of the notices.
Folks' comments follow statements made by Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis in Parliament last Tuesday. Minnis said he instructed Attorney General Commodore Bethel to petition the court to lift a standing injunction that prohibits the government from demolishing shanty towns in the country. A few weeks earlier, on October 2nd, he announced that the AG had been instructed to acquire land where the mud, pigeon peas, and sandbanks were once located before they were destroyed by Hurricane Dorian. The government's stance has repeatedly drawn criticism from human rights groups, including Rights Bahamas, which call the move xenophobic and petty. Folks has defended the task force work, saying it was extensive.
We did a comprehensive report that took months to produce, and over 100 civil servants that went into all of the shanty towns throughout the country. And we produced a report for New Providence, which we made public. We produced a report for Abaco, which we made public. So we have a very good idea in terms of the amount of persons in the shanty towns, the conditions in which they live, some of the social challenges, some of the law enforcement challenges. So we have the information.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Amid confusion over the decision to send Defense Force Commodore Bethel on leave following the worst hurricane to hit the Bahamas, his replacement, Deputy Commander Dr. Raymond King, is speaking out. He says he is already working on deficiencies identified in their security posture. Jillian Gray reports.
While some have criticized the timing of Commodore Bethel's vacation, the acting Commodore Dr. Raymond King says he's not deterred by the noise in the marketplace. He said his focus is on the restoration and recovery efforts in the wake of Hurricane Dorian.
When I realized that there were some deficiencies in our security posture, I've moved aggressively to address that issue. The comfort of the men and women, in order for them to do their job, because this is going to be a sustained effort. And we need to provide the conditions that provide for sustained accommodations, etc. And so we've looked at that. And there are a lot of lessons learned, which will be employed as needed in the future in terms of in response to any natural disasters.
Commodore Bethel was sent on leave on October 15th. However, the National Security Minister has admitted he doesn't know what's next for Bethel once his leave ends in January 2020. The opposition has questioned why Bethel would be sent on leave at such a critical time when the Defense Force is at the forefront of recovery efforts. However, the Prime Minister defended the move, insisting government is not in the business of paying individuals for years-long vacation leave they have accumulated.
My task is the operational use. My focus is on the recovery, safety and security of our citizens and residents in the affected areas and protecting our borders against transnational crime.
In recent weeks, residents of Abaco have expressed safety concerns. Dr. King said his team is working to put those fears to rest as the recovery of bodies and safety of residents are top of his list of priorities.
We've prioritized those aspects to reduce the fear of crime, and thirdly, to ensure that our Marines are properly staged by, we have mobilized our container city from Machutown in Agua that has the capacity and the means to house them comfortably so that they'll be able to do their jobs.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
A woman who claims she lost her mother and brother during Hurricane Dorian's passage last month is outraged after she says she was told that DNA test results confirming their identities could take up to 9 months. Jared Hicks has that.
They're going to keep the bodies in the morgue, or if they are really bury them.
During Hurricane Dorian's deadly passage, 27-year-old Sita Cillian says her brother and mother were killed. However, she didn't have the chance to show authorities her mother's remains and was desperate to find closure. Now, 2 months later, she says a group from Texas accompanied her to Abaco, where she says she found her mother's body exactly where she left her.
But I have the tennis, what she had on. It was only bone and a little bit meat that left. And she had this chain on her neck. They give it to me.
The hairdresser says the remains were taken to the morgue, and police have taken blood work from her and her nephew to test against her mother and brother's DNA. However, she's outraged over the length of time she would have to wait to get the results.
They tell me to leave my phone on. I understand that. They said I have to do a blood work. It takes 9 months to verify that's my mom. But at first they wanted me to prove that she was still on the floor. I went back.
Last month, Attorney General Commodore Bethel told reporters that under certain circumstances, the coroner would expedite the death certificates of individuals who died during the storm. Cillian says she desperately needs her mother's death certificate so she can continue the process of closure. It is also important for her brother's son as they try to secure government documents for him. The long wait time and the uncertainty over government's handling of the remains it collected is causing the displaced woman a lot of anxiety.
I don't want that. I don't want that 9 months and this and that.
Why do you need it? So why is it so important?
I want them to bury. I just want them to bury. I just want them to bury. Because when somebody dead, or if they don't want me to bury them, if they're going to take the bodies, just let me know they're going to take the bodies. If they're going to burn them, just say something to me so I don't have to be fooling myself that they still in the morgue, they still going to do something with them, and I'll be there waiting.
Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands told Our News that those DNA results will not take 9 months. However, it is unclear how long government thinks it will take for those tests to come back. Sands' reassurances may do little to soothe Cillian's concerns. She says important steps, such as finding a job, are complicated by the heavy burden created by the deaths of her family members.
And as soon as I go to work, they call me, Sita, you know, we have to see you because we find out this about your mommy, this about your brother, right. And I can't take no day off. You understand? So I don't know.
The storm's death toll currently stands at 65, with hundreds more believed to be missing. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Hicks.
Minister of State for Disaster Preparedness Iram Lewis revealing today that $15 million has been allocated for cleanup efforts on Abaco. This as government prepares to issue contracts for the cleanup of residential areas.
We have allocated $15 million for the cleanup.
Not only cleanup, just for everything.
No, that's for $15 million for the cleanup. On the dome so far, in order to mobilize that process, $2.7 million was issued. With respect to the RVs, the question that was just asked just now, that was 1.8 million. So we can account for at least 4.5 million that was expended so far.
Lewis says Abaco's main roads have all been cleared. He says plans are in place to establish commercial banks on the island.
Plans are on the way right now for Royal Bank to move into the government compound area. And Commonwealth Bank, the local bank, and yes, the Bahamian Bank, we are very proud to say that they are pretty much up and running.
Meanwhile, Hurricane Dorian's death toll is up to 67. That's according to NEMA's director, Captain Stephen Russell, who says that as residential areas are cleared, recovery efforts will continue.
The police on the island of Abaco recovered the remains of 2 unidentified bodies. One in Dundastown, Abaco, on Monday, the 28th of October, and one in the mud on Thursday, the 24th of October this year. This brings the total number of deceased persons recovered since the passing of Hurricane Dorian to 67.
Officials also provided an update on shelters here in New Providence. Currently, 5 shelters are in use, housing 777 displaced persons. 3 days after the Department of Labor called their strike poll invalid, employees of the National Insurance Board are now on work to rule. Those employees walked off the job again today and met with their union president, who informed them they are taking this matter to court. Kyle Joaquin reports.
We had enough. We're sick and tired, and we ain't gonna take it no more.
It was back outdoors for scores of NIB employees today, where Public Officers Union President Guion Roach told them no extra work is to be done, as they're now on work to rule.
We will work on our terms. Okay, we've bent over backwards. We've rolled up our sleeves and we've dug in to be disrespected. So now it's time to kind of reduce the pace a little bit, and we will go from there.
Last Friday, NIB employees took part in a strike poll where 226 voted to take strike action, while 1 person voted no. Over on Grand Bahama, the results were unanimous, with 27 employees voting to strike. However, Labor Director John Pender says that strike poll was invalid because the union didn't file the necessary paperwork. However, the union president says otherwise and showed his members what he called proof.
The approval from the Department of Labor for us to conduct our poll on Friday. We have seen no official notices other than this letter stating why we could not have the poll. So we still voted on Friday.
It was dated October 21st.
October 21st, correct. Which was 4 days before the poll.
The union has now enlisted the legal help of TUC President and Attorney Obie Ferguson to take the matter to court.
Now, as you all know, the Department of Labor, the Director John Pender, pulled the rug from under us on Thursday. He called me and said, if you can't have the vote tomorrow, I said, okay, send it to me. I never received a letter from him. The only letter I hold in my hand is the authorization to conduct the poll. I went to the Department of Labor, I spoke with the designated officer, and she said she know nothing about the poll being canceled. So we voted. We did what we had to do, and now the matter is going to be fought in court.
Roach says NIB Minister Brenzel Roll has requested a meeting with the union, and he hopes that will happen sometime on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Labor Minister Dion Folk said he had separate meetings with the union and the Department of Labor last week, but hopes to bring the 2 sides to one table as soon as possible.
I had a discussion last week with the president, President Roach, along with one of his advisors. And I also spoke to the minister responsible for NIB, Mr. Brenzel Roll, and I encouraged both of them to sit down and talk. The Director of Labor has arranged a meeting.
The Labor Minister expressed hope for a resolution.
I think so. They have had several talks, the Director of Labor along with Reverend Patterson, who's one of our consultants. They've had several meetings, and apparently they have agreed to some of the outstanding issues with respect to their contract. I understand there are 1 or 2 issues that are now outstanding, and I'm very hopeful we could get those resolved this week.
But until then,
everybody know what work to rule mean, right? Yes. We can go it slow. We can take it slow. Yes. Easy like Sunday morning.
Yes. Sunday morning. For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Still to come on Our News, Rev and Alive present a 6-figure check to government. The details after this.